Hi, I'm Sandy Krell Andre, and I'm a Des Moines County Master Gardener. And I'm here at the Homestead 1839 in the barn, their event space. And I maintain a cut flower garden for the homestead, and we sell bouquets to support their food donation, their food security program. So I'm here to tell you how to extend the vase life of cut flowers. And what I'm telling you about is I got some of it from books, but some of it is just from the experience I've gotten over the years that I've been doing this. For the most part, the bouquets we sell last about a week, and I don't think you can really expect much more than that. Some flowers will last longer. But anyway, this is the first thing that you have to start with is clean buckets and vases. And so my rule of thumb is if you wouldn't feed a baby out of it, then it needs to be sterilized. So that means what I do is with the vases, I use a little bit of just regular dish soap, but always bleach. I always put a little bit of bleach in it. Now when I'm harvesting a whole bunch of flowers for the bouquets here, I have a big wagon full of buckets. And so I have buckets of all sizes. I have this size, I have this size, I have this size, and I have some really big ones that I put my sunflowers in. And the reason I have all these sizes is because you're going to have different lengths of stems, and you want them to stand up in the bucket, but you don't want them to fall down. So anyway, I put the buckets in my wagon, and I put a little bit of bleach in each one, just a tiny splash of bleach in each one. And then I fill those buckets with water, slosh them around, and rinse them. And that sterilizes the buckets. So why do I do that? Because there's going to be bacteria in the buckets. And for me, I do this once a week. And in the intervening week, bacteria will build up in your buckets. And that bacteria will go up the stems of your flowers and block the stems, so they can't get the water. So your flowers will die a lot faster that way. Some people think that I'm really being overly fastidious sterilizing buckets, but it really helps. Second important point is that you always harvest your flowers in the coolest part of the day. They are going to be the most hydrated in the morning and second most in the evening. So I'm a morning person, so I get out there almost at sunrise. And sometimes even slightly before sunrise when you can first see, when it's first light, and I harvest my flowers. This is my handy dandy tool belt, just like a carpenter would use, because like a carpenter you use different tools for different things. This is a pruner, and I would use this for small woody stems. This is, I call this a snip, but I think they're called, I don't know what they're called. I don't know what the fancy name is, but this is the one that I use the most to cut flowers. This one I don't really use this for harvesting flowers a lot, but sometimes I will if I want to get past one flower. You know, there's a flower that has several stems, and I want to get right in there and just kind of snip one of the stems. I'll use those. So this is a tool I don't use real often. It's called a Ratchet Pruner, and the reason it's called that is because it has a ratchet in it. So if you're trying to cut a real thick stem, instead of having to try to go like that real hard with your arthritic hands, you can go like this and it'll ratchet up until you can cut it. It's very good for people with arthritis, but it's really good for people who don't want to overstrain their hands in any way. Now, the important thing is, whatever tool you use, that those tools be clean and sharp. Because if they're not clean, they're going to transfer bacteria to the stems. If they're not sharp, you're going to pinch the stems, and then again, water can't get up into the flowers. Now, you have to just find whatever tools work best for you. Some people who have volunteered out here don't like any of these. They would rather use scissors, florist scissors. I don't like using the scissors, but whatever. I end up sharpening this one in particular, the one that I use a lot, about once a month. So I invested in this little sharpener, real easy to use. Again, for somebody with arthritis, you just grab it and run the sharpener along the edge. Actually, my husband usually does that for me. And then he usually shakes his head and wonders how long it's going to be before I cut a finger off. But, okay, so you've got the right tools. Now, you want to harvest your flowers at the right maturity, which for most flowers, and I'm not going to go into the exceptions, most flowers you want to harvest them when they're barely opening. So if you look at these tulips, you'll see that this one's probably open actually a little bit too much. But the others have not, I knew that was going to happen, have not opened at all, or very little. And that's good, because in the morning, if you go out to where I got these tulips this morning at 7 o'clock, you would find that they're open now. In the morning they were all closed up, they're open now. And so you want to get them when they're still closed as much as possible. Now there's some exceptions, like I said, but I'm not going to go into those. Right away, I take this bucket of cool water out into the garden with me. Actually, I'm hauling a wagon full of buckets, and you put it, as soon as you cut it, you put it in the bucket so that it continue to hydrate. Then you put the buckets in a cool place. We have a walk-in cooler here, which is real handy, but you can put it in your refrigerator if the bucket's not too big. You can just sit it in the shade someplace out of the wind, but cool. It's okay if there's a breeze, but you don't want a big heavy wind. So you're letting the stems rest in the cool. Then you prepare your water. From a florist, they'll usually give you a packet of preservative that looks something like this. When you buy flowers here at the homestead, you would get these. I mix it by the gallon because I'm making 30 to 60 bouquets at a time. So I buy this in quantity. This is called, what is it called? Floral Life. And I'll put a whole scoop of this in, I think it's about an 5 to 8 gallon bucket. But you really only need a small quantity, and these packets really have about twice as much as you need. So I'm going to put about half of this in here. And then I'm going to do something that's inviting disaster, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to go like this. Oh, that's not too bad. Okay. Yeah, it's not. You want it to be dissolved all the way. I'm just going to go ahead. But, you know, there's a film in the bottom of this. If you see it, there's still some in there. You don't want that. But in the interest of time, we'll just go ahead. So you prepare your vase water. You also can make your own preservative if you don't have any handy. And the recipe that I have used that has worked is a teaspoon of sugar. This is for one vase. A teaspoon of sugar, 2 teaspoons of lemon or lime juice, and a teaspoon of bleach. Because what you want is sugar, which is a food, an acidifier, which is the lemon or lime juice, and a biocide, something that will kill the bacteria, which is the bleach. Now, next step is to recut the stems. One thing I want to tell you is that there's a special thing when you're using a woody stem like this. If you look at this, you will see that I have cut the stem is that vertical, horizontal, whatever that is, along the length of the stem. And I actually cut this one twice. Now in the case of lilacs, they have smaller stems, so I probably only cut it once. But now I'm going to end up probably cutting it again because this is too big. And I don't know how this is going to turn out because usually I plan a little bit better. But I'm going to just cut this off. And I'm going to use my Ratchet pruners and cut this off about here. Now notice I'm cutting this at an angle. You want to cut your stems at an angle because it increases the surface to absorb the water. And then I'll cut it like this, and again like this, and I'll stick that in the vase. Now this one's a nice tall one. I'm going to peel one leaf off. For the most part, you don't want to have leaves beneath the water level because that will it'll rot and it'll make your water look bad and increase chances of bacteria. So again, I'm cutting it at an angle. Now when I'm making, sometimes when I'm making bouquets, I'll kind of hold them and figure out, okay, I want it to look like this, and I want this over here, and I'm not, this is not going to be a beautiful bouquet because I am in a hurry. We're not in a hurry, but I want to save time. So I will just kind of hold them and cut them all at the same time so that they're the lengths I want them. So if I want these on the outside and this tall one in the middle, yeah, I'll just do it. I will hold it like that and cut them all at the same time so that they're the lengths I want them to be. Now with this one it doesn't matter so much because they're all about there anyway. But, and sometimes I will admit I leave some of the daffodil or tulip leaves in the water, even though you're not supposed to, because it looks prettier. Okay, now, and I would mess with this more to get it to look exactly the way I want, but you kind of get the gist. That you want to cut the stems again, preferably at an angle, and that doesn't look the way I want it to yet, so I'll play with it some more. But the more I play with it, the more likely it is that I'm going to have to cut the stems again. Here's some special cases, I'll call it. There are some flowers that we call dirty flowers. They're called that because some flowers will turn your water murky really fast, even if you've got floral preservative. And sometimes that just looks bad. Other times it gets really slimy and nasty, and then it's going to clog the stems. Some of those dirty flowers are black-eyed Susans, sunflowers, zinnias, which is, we have unbelievable numbers of zinnias out here, and zinnias end up in almost all the bouquets. So those are some of the dirty flowers. Another one, I've heard both ways with yarrow, so I'm not sure about yarrow, but I think yarrow is another dirty flower. So for those, to address that problem, in your water, when you're mixing your preservative in, you also put just a couple of drops of bleach. So if I had any of those dirty flowers in here, I would just put a little bit of bleach in the lid to avoid putting too much in there. And I would just put a little bit in the lid and make, you know, I've even heard of people using eyedroppers. That's a little bit fastidious even for me. Another special situation is daffodils. Now, I used to be told that you could not put daffodils in bouquets with other flowers because daffodils exude a slime when they're first cut, and that slime is harmful to other flowers. However, you can put daffodils in bouquets with other flowers if you let them sit in water for at least 2 hours. At least 2 hours. And since you're letting your flowers rest anyway, that's not a problem. The one thing is you can't trim the stems when you make your your bouquets, because that would just, you'd start over with the same problem. So when you cut them and put them in that water, kind of keep that in mind. So I have some daffodils that are really long stemmed, and I probably leave the stems long and put them in the middle. And then I have these really cute little baby daffodils that I want to put on the outside. So I'll cut those stems shorter so that I am not going to be cutting those stems again. And with daffodils, you can also cut them when they are completely closed, and they will open and last a long time. So I'm hoping that you have success with your cut flowers, and I encourage you to, again, keep everything clean And if you would, please like this video and share it, because the Des Moines County Master Gardeners would appreciate it. Happy gardening.